In early May of this year, a delegation of politicians from the German Conservative Party met up with the Republican governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. Afterwards, Andreas Scheuer, the one on the left, stated that he shares the analyses of DeSantis. To understand why this is worrisome, we need to understand what is happening to the LGBTQIA+ community in Florida right now. As I am speaking, queer, trans, gender non-conforming people and their families are leaving the state due to a law that was passed in May by the Republican state government. SB 254 allows for Child Protective Services to take a minor into custody whose parents are under the suspicion of providing them with gender-affirming care. This doesn't require proof. A call from a concerned neighbor will already do. Florida also leaves the definition of what qualifies as gender-affirming care open to interpretation, so a short haircut on a cis girl can already qualify. Furthermore, this law allows for felony penalties for providers giving access to and bans public funds from being used for benefits that include gender-affirming care for trans people of any age. This is not the first law of this kind that has been passed in the state.
HB 1069, better known as Don't Say Gay, has banned any mention of sexual orientation
or gender identity from pre-K through grade 8, forcing school staff and students to dead name and misgender one another and not allowing teachers to so much as mention their spouse should they be in a queer marriage. In April, Florida's Board of Education voted to expand this law to all grades. HB 1521 persecutes trans people for using restrooms in accordance with their gender identity while simultaneously banning gender-inclusive restrooms and changing rooms in a number of public facilities where trans people are especially vulnerable. In 2023 alone, more than 520 anti-LGBTQ+ bills have been introduced in state legislatures all over the United States, over 220 of which specifically target trans and non-binary people. A record 70, up until today, have been enacted. They are banning gender-affirming care, drag shows, mentions of LGBTQIA+ issues in education, effectively erasing queer and trans people from public life. And this has been more or less publicly announced by a number of Republican politicians and pundits beforehand. So here's who I am. I'm a journalist, activist, and content creator, and I am currently a grad student of US American Studies in Germany, as I was asked to clarify due to my accent. I am also a proud lesbian in a polyamorous relationship with a wonderful non-binary person and very active in the LGBTQIA+ community. A community which right now is under threat, even in places that we thought were safe. Let me be crystal clear. These bills and the rhetoric that surrounds them are already costing lives. Transgender teenagers in the US are more than 7 times as likely to attempt suicide than non-trans teenagers. These numbers drop drastically when they're confirmed in their gender identity and provided with gender-affirming care. Still, Republicans claim the queer community and parents who support us are what children need protection from. They do so by utilizing a dangerous rhetoric that has been used for decades to demonize our community, frame our existence as inherently sexual, us as predatory, and our representation in public as indoctrination. At almost the same time, these German politicians met up with DeSantis. Members of their party, the Christian Social Union in Munich, demanded a ban on an all-ages drag story hour. When the event eventually took place last week, counter-protesters showed up with signs and banners accusing queer people of sexualizing children. And the alt-right was only too eager to support these false narratives and then push them even further. Now, if you know anything about queer history, you know that none of this is new to us. In the 1950s and 60s, conservatives accused queer and trans people of sodomy. While who would have been our elders were killed by the AIDS crisis by the thousands, conservative Christians were busy warning parents about their satanic influences. And when marriage was finally on the table for us, they argued that our love was a fetish and that we were destroying the sanctity of the institution. The LGBTQIA+ community has always been low-hanging fruit for politicians in need of an enemy. Even more so, with any anti-LGBTQIA+ rhetoric conservatives were spreading in the US, Europe would follow suit soon after. When it comes to this community and the attacks it has to endure, the United States has been a window into our future. So if you still don't feel like acting, allow me to give you a peek through that window.
Hi, my name is Avery Wade, and I'm a trans man.
Hi, my name is Levi Root, and I am a non-binary Black woman.
I am Woods, and me and my oldest child are considered trans and queer.
My name is Michaela Watson, and I'm a trans woman.
My name is Christy, and I'm a mother of a transgender son, my only child, who took his life last year due to the laws by these politicians like Ron DeSantis.
We are currently having to uproot our lives and flee our hometown Orlando, Florida, because of all of the anti-trans legislations and gay legislations that Ron DeSantis has put into law.
The laws that were passed in Florida allowed for my middle child to be removed from my care by an abusive ex.
Due to us being a biracial couple, it has been extremely hard to walk around and just be ourselves.
I could not stay in the state of Florida to fight for her. I instead had to flee with my oldest child to protect them and keep them from going into the foster care system.
I recently had to evacuate my home state of Florida because of laws that were put into place that would restrict or outright deny my ability to receive hormone replacement therapy, a life-saving medical intervention.
Taking away their gender-affirming, life-saving care.
We have each other and people with us at all times because we just don't feel safe.
Going after parents, making it illegal to seek help for them. Politicians like him have my son's blood on their hands.
HRT literally saved my life, and without it, I know for a fact I would not be here.
But I know that we can make it through this, even though it is very difficult. Love always wins.
First of all, I want to thank the brave people who sent me videos in the past couple of days. Now I'm going to say something uncomfortable. We are not united. Within our community, trans hostility, racism, ableism, and misogyny run just as deep as in the rest of society. Maybe even more so because we are so unwilling to recognize it for fear of seeming weak. At the same time, too many of us have stopped fighting for the rest of the community once we have gained some mainstream acceptance. But what we need to understand is that an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. And if you won't believe that out of solidarity and empathy, believe it out of self-preservation. If you think the people attacking drag performers and trans people for not conforming to traditional gender norms won't attack butch lesbians and flamboyant gay men for the same thing, you are mistaken, because that is exactly what would have happened in Tennessee if their anti-drag bill banning male and female impersonators hadn't been blocked by a court for being unconstitutional. You know what also doesn't conform with traditional gender norms? Men kissing men, and women kissing women, or people with a uterus making self-determined decisions about their reproductive health, or women having the right to work or vote. We're in this together. Numbers of violence against LGBTQIA+ people have already reached a record high in Europe and the US. Drag shows in Europe are now being protested by concerned parents. So were they in the US a year ago. Now the protesters outside of these drag shows there are waving swastika flags and doing Nazi salutes. Take a hint. Black and brown trans people, especially sex workers, were the first to fight for our rights. And if we don't come together as a community now, they will have been the last. Because the reason there are so many more young queer and trans people than old ones is not that they've never existed. It's that they didn't survive. Our rights are fragile. We only just got them. So stop taking them for granted because they are already being taken away again. But we are not helpless. Our community is better organized, more well-connected. We have more resources and allies than ever before. We are standing on the shoulders of giants, from Marsha P. Johnson and Stormé de Larverie to Raquel Willis and Cece McDonald. They have given us all the tools that we need. We just need to pick them up and put them to use. So here's what you can do, whether you're a member of the LGBTQIA+ community or an ally. Educate yourself, then educate others. Inform yourself, seek out the marginalized voices within our community and listen to them, because trans people who are Black, brown, and Indigenous have been screaming about this at the tops of their lungs for years, and we wouldn't be here if we had listened to them. And it shouldn't take a white cis woman saying this for people to listen, but here we are. Organize. Become active in your community. Whether you volunteer your time at a queer youth group, support a political advocacy group, or join a queer book club. Then make sure these spaces are diverse and inclusive. And if there are none of those spaces, then ask why and ask loudly. And if you don't have the resources to do that, you can still sign and share petitions, talk to friends and colleagues, and most importantly, vote to protect the lives of this community. Everyone can do something. Find your strength and use it. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, look inwards. Once we manage to confront our own isms, this community will become a safe space for all who belong to it, and we will be stronger for it. Because there is strength in our diversity and grace and beauty. Let's embrace it and truly become one community, because none of us are free until all of us are free. Thank you.